Tonight, after expressing anti-Semitic sentiments, Israel weighs whether to let Congresswomen Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib visit the Jewish state. And with a campaign rally in New Hampshire tonight, we take a look at what President Trump has said in the past that has upset some Christians. Plus, we explain how the United States has become the #1 oil and gas producing country in the world. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. Two American members of Congress are not welcome in Israel. Thanks for joining us tonight for Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup.
And I'm Jenna Browder. We begin tonight with that major controversy involving the state of Israel and two American lawmakers.
Israeli officials deciding today to prevent Democratic Representatives Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar from visiting the country.
Now, both support boycott legislation against Israel. And while backlash has been seen from both sides of the aisle, there has also been some support for the move.
Eric Phillips has been following the news and joins us now for more on the fallout. Eric?
John and Jenna, there are strong feelings on both sides of this issue. The bottom line, the Israeli government was initially going to allow the Congresswomen to enter the country. But this morning, in an about-face, officials changed their minds, citing Israeli law that allows them to ban people whose position may harm their country. The impending visit to Israel by Representatives Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib had been the subject of much consternation for weeks. Then President Trump weighed in with this tweet. It would show great weakness if Israel allowed Representative Omar and Representative Tlaib to visit. They hate Israel and all Jewish people. They are a disgrace. Hours later, the Israeli government officially announced that the Muslim American Congresswomen would not be allowed. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu tweeting, "The itinerary of the two Congresswomen reveals that the sole purpose of their visit is to harm Israel and increase incitement against it."
If Representative Tlaib and Representative Omar have a different point of view, that doesn't mean that they should be censored. Our great alliance means that they should respect the United States Congress and allow any United States member of Congress access to their country.
Reaction from some Democratic 2020 hopefuls was swift. Senator Bernie Sanders calling it a sign of enormous disrespect. Senator Elizabeth Warren says it's a shameful and unprecedented move. But not everyone calls this situation a bad one. The Republican Jewish Coalition issued this statement supporting it. And the American Israel Public Affairs Committee went middle of the road, saying they disagree with the Congresswomen's stance, but that they should be allowed in. Then there's this reaction from Palestine.
In my belief that the Israeli behavior shows that they are afraid that these two Congresswomen will expose to the world the horrible violations of human rights that are conducted against the Palestinian people.
Tonight, Congresswoman Omar has responded to Israel's decision, releasing a statement calling it an affront, but saying she's not surprised given the public positions of Prime Minister Netanyahu. As for Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, she does have Palestinian family in the region, and the statement from the Israeli government was clear that if she files a humanitarian request to visit her family and promises not to promote boycotts against Israel, the government will consider that request.
Now, Eric, based on the timing here, there does seem to have been a shift on their visit after President Trump's tweet. How is that being perceived?
Well, that was a question I asked CBN's Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell, who's on the ground there in Jerusalem. Listen to what he had to say.
Well, the reaction over here from some lawmakers is actually calling Netanyahu a coward for kowtowing to Trump's tweet this morning, and perhaps pressure that came privately. On the other hand, people say that maybe this was a political decision to some degree by Netanyahu. There was going to be an election in just about a month. And on the right side of things here in the Israeli political scene, it looks like he would be considered a hero.
Now, Chris said that Netanyahu could take a hit politically among some voters who are undecided, but that he's hedging his bets that his decision will help him more than hurt him come election time.
All right. Thank you, Eric. Well, the stock market appeared to stabilize today after yesterday's steep losses over fears of a looming recession. At the close of the day, the Dow Jones Industrial Average was up around 100 points. The S&P 500 ended about 7 points up.
Well, a West Virginia lawmaker is calling out President Trump for using the Lord's name in vain at his last rally.
It comes as the president is set to travel tonight to rally his base in New Hampshire. CBN News White House correspondent Ben Kennedy joins us now to explain how the president's gotten himself into a little hot water. Ben?
Yeah, John, Jenna, a little hot water. President Trump used the Lord's name in vain twice during that rally in North Carolina. It's gotten him in a bit of a tight spot with some evangelicals who are seen as critical for his re-election. President Trump was met with applause in Greenville, North Carolina last month. But now some supporters are speaking out against what he said when talking about a businessman he didn't get along with.
But you're going to support me because you're a rich guy. And if you don't support me, you're going to be so goddamn poor. You're not.
Then it happened again, this time when discussing how hard the U.S. military would strike Iran.
We're going to hit them from Iraq. We're going to hit them from places that they never knew existed, sir. They'll be hit so goddamn hard, sir.
Senator Paul Herdesky got 3 phone calls the next day from voters not happy with the president's rhetoric. He released a statement in part saying, "I represent the people of the southern coalfields, Democrats and Republicans. They are hardworking, God-fearing people. That type of language is not acceptable here." Trump has maintained support from evangelicals and conservative Christians, but this type of speech could hurt him going forward.
Mark, you're obviously very close to the vice president. What does he think when he hears the president talking like this?
Well, I think it's certainly unfortunate anytime the Lord's name is used in vain, and I don't think you'll be hearing that again in future rallies. But, you know, I'm also going to be respectful of the vice president's private conversations with the president and what he encourages, said or not said at rallies. I do think that, you know, this president has energized a large number of Americans. And I think the reality is that there's so many Christians support the administration because of decisions that this administration has taken. And I think that his support among the evangelical community is strong. It doesn't you know, excuse taking the Lord's name in vain. We take that seriously, and hopefully it doesn't happen again.
Now, Short would not get into the details what Pence told the president, but it's clear from the VP's chief of staff that it will not be a part of his speech tonight in New Hampshire or any speech moving forward. John, Jenna?
All right, we'll see. Thank you, Ben Kennedy at the White House. Well, joining us now is Gabby Orr with Politico. Gabby, good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
You know, your story this week brought to light this story, President Trump using the Lord's name in vain. He'll be in New Hampshire again tonight at another rally. Mark Short saying that he doesn't think the president will be talking like this again. Do you think the president got that message?
I know that there are quite a few people, including the vice president, who have told the president, try to steer clear of using this language because it's going to continue to upset your evangelical supporters. It's not just Mark Short, it's not just Mike Pence, it's religious leaders, people who have the president's ear and talk to him regularly. And so if he's listening to them and paying attention to them, then I don't anticipate that we'll see this type of language used again. But of course, it's President Trump. He likes to talk off the cuff. One of the times that I reference in my article where he did sort of get in trouble for his vulgar language was at the CPAC conference in March when he boasted about talking off the cuff and going off script.
Gabby, the Washington Post recently published an essay called In God's Country, and it really makes the case that evangelicals view Trump as their protector. And in it says because Trump is, quote, less Christian than your average believer, he's better suited to protect Christians who, quote, fear incursions from a hostile, dominant culture. Is that what generates his appeal among evangelicals?
I would say they mostly view him as a protector of their beliefs, their ideologies, and also of just their ability to practice freely as Christians in this country, to practice their faith. I mean, if you talk to any evangelical voter at a Trump rally, one of the #1 things that comes up is that they feel as though Democrats are hostile to Christians in America. And that's why they just can't bring themselves to support anybody from that party. So Donald Trump, if you look at the agenda that he has carried out throughout his first 2.5 years in office, it is very much aligned with the evangelical community, the evangelical voting bloc. They recognize that there are character flaws with this president, but they are willing to overlook those things if it means that you are advancing a pro-life agenda, advancing things that help boost our ally Israel, putting pro-life judges on the appellate and federal courts. All of those things are sort of more important to them than anything else that this president could do or say.
Gabby, the same article suggested President Trump might win an even larger scale of evangelical support in 2020. Your thoughts on that?
Well, if you look at the polling, as I was just saying, there are a number of evangelicals who the issues that were important to them in 2016, things like judicial nominations and abortion and immigration, they feel as though this president has done a pretty adequate job carrying out all of his promises. Of course, there are people who will say, well, he hasn't built the wall completely, he hasn't done this X, Y, or Z on abortion policy, but for the most part, he has remained committed to the things that he laid out on the campaign trail in 2016. And so, naturally, you would see voters who supported him back then gravitate toward him again this time, and also bring in family members and friends who might share their same beliefs and Christian faith.
We're a little tight on time here, but at the very top of the show, we just talked about how Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced today that Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar are banned from traveling to Israel. Your thoughts?
It's roiled the White House. There are quite a few White House officials, I'll just say this quickly, that are split on this decision. They know that the president encouraged it. They know that he's satisfied that Israel has decided to prevent both of these congresswomen from coming, but there are quite a few also who think that this could potentially be a PR disaster for Republicans and for this administration.
Well, we'll have to leave it there.
Gabby Orr with Politico, great reporting. And
thank you.
Coming up, Faith Nation speaks with California Congressman Ro Khanna about gun control, the economy, and more. We'll be right back.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
Welcome back. The House Judiciary Committee may return early from its summer recess to try and tackle new gun control legislation.
And although while most agree something needs to be done, the question does remain, can lawmakers come up with a plan that could make it through both chambers? CBN News Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson spoke to Congressman Ro Khanna today about gun control and joins us now. Abigail, interesting interview.
Yes, it was. And I think the question will be, what we've been hearing are reports that the administration is talking to Senators Pat Toomey and Joe Manchin about their bipartisan background check bill. But the issue here is that this bill is not as strong as the background check bill that the House passed in February. So the question is, will that bill, if it passes the Senate, make it through the House? When I asked Congressman Khanna about this, he said that, yes, he would prefer the House bill, but he will take either one. Take a look.
I do. I'm for the stronger bill. I obviously voted for the stronger background checks. We know that background checks reduce violence. Almost 170 deaths a day would be prevented with stronger background checks, according to the experts. So I hope we would pass the House version, but I'm not going to let the perfect be the enemy of the good and not vote for a bill that would advance things. And I think Senator Toomey's bill is one that would advance us in a better direction.
And two other things to be on the lookout is if we will see a renewed push to renew the assault weapons ban that expired 15 years ago, and also to implement red flag laws, which the president has indicated he supports. So we could see a lot happen with this in September.
Abby, obviously gun control has been a big topic on the campaign trail for weeks, but as you learned fresh back from your trip to Iowa covering the state fair, that the candidates aren't always getting very many opportunities to talk policy.
Yes, we are hearing right now a lot of Democrat campaigns complaining about the media coverage, saying that they are having issues getting their political messages through in all of the other things that are being focused on. Specifically, the Biden campaign was pretty unhappy about the way that the news cycle over the weekend really focused on his political gaffes instead of the substance of what he was saying. Another person, Senator Sanders, has gone as far as to accuse the Washington Post of negative coverage because of critical comments that he has made about their billionaire owner, Jeff Bezos. So we're seeing a lot on that front. Now, Congressman Khanna is the co-chair of Senator Sanders' campaign. I obviously wanted to ask him about this, and he responded that in his personal view, it is never okay to attack the media, but he did say this.
I wish they focused more on the issues about how do we help rural America and get broadband to rural America? How do we make sure that we are creating good-paying jobs? How do we make sure that we raise wages when there's such large income inequality? It seems like the bread and butter issues haven't gotten enough attention, and what gets attention is more of the personality conflict.
And interestingly enough, quite a few people in the media have responded to this criticism by telling the Democrat candidates that they sound like President Trump.
You know, Abby, we've talked before on Faith Nation about civility in politics today, and in today's culture, we really don't see a lot of it. That's something that you spoke to him about, right?
Yeah, this was a topic I wasn't even planning on hitting on in the interview, but I always ask lawmakers, you know, if at the end, if there's anything else they wanted to add. And today, here's what Congressman Khanna's response was.
What we really desperately need in this country is more civility, is more dialogue. We come from often different perspectives ideologically, but this country seems so broken in ways where people aren't showing respect and dialogue. And I just hope as we reflect over the summer and come back in the fall that we can come back with a sense of trying to stitch the country back together.
A great message as Congress prepares to return from a pretty tumultuous month for the country.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, Abigail Robertson, thank you so much.
Thanks, Abby.
Well, up next, oil production in America. How the United States is now outpacing countries like Saudi Arabia and Russia.
Give me that. Bye. Sure, life is busy, but I found a way to make a huge difference in people's lives. I guess you could say I'm changing the world right here from home. I bring medical supplies and doctors to people in need, and dig wells so that villagers can have clean and safe water to drink. I make it possible to preach the gospel in over 100 countries, including right here in America. And when disaster strikes, I'm there, providing food, thank you, and emergency supplies to give people hope again. Every day, CBN and I are making the world a better place. Here you go. My life is hectic, so I joined CBN through Pledge Express. My bank does all the work, and I know that my gift is being used where it's needed most. So become a CBN partner and join Pledge Express, because you can do a world of good right from where you are. Hi, good morning. Are you ready to get started?
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Get Protect Your Sleep and live your best life with innovative information from 5 leading sleep experts.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
Discover a sleep-enhancing bedtime routine, how to put insomnia to rest, learn how to relieve pain that disturbs sleep, and much more in Protect Your Sleep.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Don't miss out on this brand new series.
Many Americans don't realize the United States is an energy superpower, producing more oil and gas than Russia and Saudi Arabia.
It's part of a boom that's been happening the last several years, and part of that boom is in a remote region of West Texas. Heather Sells traveled to the Permian Basin to see how they're making America energy independent.
20 years ago, big oil companies were pulling out of the Permian Basin. Today, it's the reason the U.S. is the #1 oil and gas producing country in the world.
The United States, because of what's happening in the Permian Basin, has outpaced Saudi Arabia, it's outpaced Russia.
Todd Staples, head of the Texas Oil and Gas Association, met us at the heart of this natural resource gift, an oil field in between Midland and Odessa. The 90,000 square mile stretch straddles West Texas and a small part of New Mexico. In the last 8 years, it has quadrupled its oil production. Today, more than 1 out of every 3 barrels of U.S. oil comes from here.
The Permian Basin in West Texas is literally fueling the world today.
Oilman Kirk Edwards grew up here and has witnessed the transformation.
We had every major here back in the 80s, and during my career, I saw every one of them move out. They all moved to Houston or Dallas and set up shop there, but now you see them coming back.
Edwards says it has surprised everyone.
Nobody knew 6 or 7 years ago that these formations could produce anywhere kind of this volume of oil that they're doing, and we're getting better at it.
What happened? Fracking. The technology blasts tiny holes filled with oil out of the rock and gets to it via horizontal drilling.
The rock has always been there. We've always produced it, but it's going horizontal through it now.
This technique has found some success in a few U.S. locations, but nothing like the basin. Crude oil production here has doubled in the last 4 years and could rise another 50% over the next 4. But with oil prices relatively low, West Texans don't call this a boom.
A boom would be oil prices in the $100 to $150 range. Then things would be going double crazy as they are right now. But again, it's more of a manufacturing process, so it's a stable environment right now.
Still, that stable environment feels more like a California gold rush. We found this McDonald's billboard in the town of Pecos, which shows you just how badly workers are needed. Up to $18 an hour for starting pay, plus tuition help.
We have the nation's lowest unemployment rates in both Midland and Odessa. We've got the hottest housing markets.
That includes so-called man camps, designed to house hundreds of oil field workers moving to the basin. Veronica Campos feeds them barbecue at her family's restaurant.
Well, we open at 11, and at 10:30 outside we have a line from the door back here is about maybe 50 feet.
The oil industry operates 6 and often 7 days a week here. The goal, never shut down production. Engineers build redundancy into all their systems, like the 2 gas pipelines here, so that if anything fails, there's a backup and production can continue 24/7. What all this means for everyday Americans, affordable oil and gas for the foreseeable future. The government expects record oil production through the next decade, with high rates continuing another 20 years. Plus, in 2020, the U.S. will become a net energy exporter for the first time in 70 years. That means we will export more energy than we import, a milestone expected to last through 2050.
It's been a game changer. It's changed our globe. It's changed the conversation. It's changed the geopolitical environment.
This energy dominance also provides both strength and calmness internationally. Economist Nick Loris with Washington's Heritage Foundation says the stability of our oil markets is incredible.
If you think about the drone strikes and some of the incidents that have taken place in the Middle East, the collapse of the Venezuelan oil market, there's all sorts of these activities that usually result in some sort of supply shock and subsequently increases in prices. And we really haven't seen that because there's so much oil in the marketplace now, with the United States being the world's largest producer.
While this new level of energy security doesn't tend to make the headlines, it's making a difference for Americans, thanks to some very hard workers in Texas who are literally willing to dig deep. Reporting in the Permian Basin, Heather Sells, CBN News.
Thank you, Heather. The amazing story of an emergency plane landing in Russia when we come back.
We will move the American embassy to the eternal capital of the Jewish people, Jerusalem.
As the nations rage, you can stand with Israel.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
Call 1-800-700-7000 and get to life.
This is our nature as a country.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religious he have, which color he is, this is what I'm doing.
Support Israel in their time of need. Get to Life, now available on DVD. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
And I wish that other people throughout the world could see this side of Israel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
Young people, millennials, are flocking to church.
It's not an exaggeration to say that we love to meet them and that we love to know their stories.
Finally tonight, 2 Russian pilots are being hailed heroes after making an emergency landing.
The plane they were flying collided with a flock of birds. That's when the pilots took life-saving action. They brought the plane down in a cornfield outside of Moscow, saving the lives of all 226 passengers, as well as the 7 crew members on board. Everyone was evacuated through emergency exits, and although some were taken to the hospital for injuries, miraculously, everybody survived. In fact, Jenna, many in Russia are actually calling it the landing of the miracle on the Raminsk. I think that's how you say it.
Yeah, well done on those pilots' part.
Sure is. Well, that's going to do it for tonight's Faith Nation.
Have a great evening.